Scripture comes from the book of Ecclesiastes, Koheleth, the preacher, the teacher. And it can seem a little heavy. And so we'll just sort of hold it as lightly as we can as you listen to this word from God. The words of the teacher, the son of David, who is king in Jerusalem. Vapor, vapor, says the teacher. Vapor of vapors, all is vapor. What do people gain from all the toil at which they toil under the sun? A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises, the sun goes down and hurries to the place where it rises. The wind blows to the south and goes around to the north. Round and around goes the wind on its circuits, and the wind returns. All the streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. To the place where the streams flow, there they continue to flow. All things are wearisome, more than one can express. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, or the ear filled with hearing. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done. There is nothing new under the sun. Is there a thing of which it is said, "See, this is new"? It has already been in the ages before us. The people of long ago are not remembered, nor will there be any remembrance of people yet to come by those who come after them. Now I move to later in chapter 2. And so it is that I turned and gave my heart up to despair concerning all the toil of my labors under the sun. Because sometimes one who has toiled with wisdom and knowledge and skill must leave all to be enjoyed by another who didn't toil for it at all. This also is vapor and a great evil. What do mortals get from all the toil and the strain with which they toil under the sun? For all their days are full of pain, and their work is a vexation. Even at night their minds don't rest. This is also vapor. There is nothing better for mortals than to eat and to drink and to find enjoyment in their toil. This also I saw is from the hand of God. For apart from God, who can eat or who can have enjoyment? For to the one who pleases God, God gives wisdom and knowledge and joy. But to the one who's a sinner, God gives the work of gathering and heaping, only to give to one who pleases God. This also is vapor and a chasing after the wind. Hear what the Spirit is saying to our church. So wasn't that fun? Perhaps it's an odd passage of Scripture for us to read, especially since it's the week after Easter. You know, all that joy still bubbling in our hearts, and we get the preacher coming down and taking us all the way down to the ground. And maybe it's especially strange given that today is kind of the launch of the capital campaign. We're giving you this information that, you know, we're hoping you're going to support a ministry that talks about the joy of Jesus Christ. And I read that passage. You know what I like about that passage? It's real. He doesn't pull any punches. It's just real. Because the truth is, there is no way to grasp hold of much of anything. He knows it. And it's not like he lived in some sort of destitute condition that made him all depressed. Most scholars believe that the author of this text lived in the restoration of Israel. Jerusalem had become kind of a boom town. It was exciting times. People were succeeding. Things were getting built. It was good, and he even cast himself in the image of Solomon, who was the greatest king of all of Israel. Yeah, he knew about the good times, yet nevertheless, he knew that you couldn't quite hang on to those things. That you could work and save and, well, at some point all could be taken away. He knew it well because the history of Israel had told him that. You know, people would work and people would build. And then, I don't know, Tiglath-Pileser III would come along and destroy all the tribes and take all the land. No, it's all vapor. You can't quite hang on to it. Don't you know that? Doesn't that just ring a little bit of a bell? Some people, of course, try to find meaning in the midst of all that, and they figure that life is a bit of a game, and they enter into a kind of competition. You know, so they want to grasp hold of meaning, grasp hold of something that they think has value by competing with other people. You know, the one who dies with the most toys wins, something like that. Now, I think competition is a great thing, but really only in sports. Because in sports, it's kind of fun. You have a game, you play the game, you test your skill against one another, and if you win, well, you jump up and down and shout for joy for 5 minutes, or, you know, if you're the Giants, 5 weeks. And then it goes on to the next game. But, you know, if you're always winning at this other game of life, this game where we're trying to amass control over one another, this power game, if you're always winning at that, no, it's not like a rejoicing kind of thing. In fact, the farther you get, the more anxious and nervous and upset you get. Because you know you can't really grasp it. It's vapor. It can be gone in a moment. It's true, too, really, for many of our ideas. You know, we preachers work really hard at being right. You know, we work very hard. I think lawyers do too, but preachers work really hard at being right, and we kind of hang on to these things. We read about these things. We test these things. We go back and forth. You know, but in the end, you look at the history of theological thought, and one leads to another, to another, to another. Am I right? Oh, I doubt it. Vapor. Trying to hang on to that is all vapor. And then of course, there's health. There's our health. I mean, our lives themselves aren't something that we can grasp onto securely. And as a result, in the end, we live with the fact, the preacher lives with the fact anyway, that it's all vapor. Can't hang on to it. But once he realizes that, he says something very interesting. There is nothing better for mortals than to eat and drink and find enjoyment in their toil. This also I saw is from the hand of God. There are those moments when we haven't been able to grasp, and we find we're able to let go of those things that we've desperately been seeking. And it's at that moment that joy begins to flow into our lives. Can't hang on to it all. Can't demand the meaning, can't demand the success. But in the work itself, in the living of life, we find the joy as we let go. I've discovered that fresh in the last few months. Many of you know, especially those of you who are kind of active in leadership here, that I have a little saying, I say it only partly with my tongue in my cheek, that the key to successful church work is what? Low expectations. Low expectations. Now, understand that's not low energy, you know, not low goals, but low expectations. And you know, because those expectations are about grasping and grabbing. They're about expecting something and pulling it in, trying to make it happen in that way. And, you know, a few months ago, my expectations got too high. And I thought we were going to make some shifts and changes, and I was pretty disappointed. I tried to act like I wasn't disappointed, but I was pretty disappointed. And my expectations and the joy, I watched the joy kind of leach out of the work that I was doing. And then I went away about a month ago, month and a half ago, I guess, to the Reality of Healing conference, and that was kind of the beginning of something. But But what began to happen for me is I felt this release. I felt this sense that, okay, the expectations can go down. It is what it is. And all of a sudden, the joy started coming back. Last week, Jan Reynolds and her husband and Barbara and I went to the Schultz's cabin up in Donner Lake to do some long-range planning. We had a blast planning the work we want to do with this congregation over the next year. There was a sense of hope, a sense of possibility, and a sense of joy. Every time John or Barbara would come into the room, they'd say, "Oh, what are you laughing about?" And then yesterday, and usually I warn people when I'm going to talk about them, but yesterday I walked into this sanctuary late in the afternoon, and who did I see at the organ console but Denise? Now, I mean to tell you that learning to play the organ was not the first thing on Denise's list of things to do this year. I know this for a fact. But you know, she cared enough for the people in this congregation that as we're going through this time of trying to figure out how much organ to have, how we're going to bring musicians in, as we're going through this transition time, she decided that her work in the world was to learn to play the organ, at least some. I was half expecting to hear a low note on the pedal at the end of that prelude. Yeah. But she was laughing the whole time, holding her legs up so she wouldn't hit the pedals. That's the joy in the work we do, not some sort of a high expectation of super success. No, it's vapor. We can't hang on to that. But oh my goodness, the joy that comes when we just relax into the work and the life that God has given us, and we learn how to let go. And I'd actually like to apply that for a moment to our capital campaign. And I'm not sure if the directors of the campaign or our consultant would appreciate what I'm going to say, but saying it anyway. I think that the gifts that come to this church for the capital projects we have need to come with that freedom and joy. If you're having problems, if it's feeling like something's being torn away from you, if you feel as though there's guilt involved, in any way, shape, or form, I do not want the money. I mean it. I'm hoping what will happen for people right now is that there'll be a kind of letting go. You know, it's all vapor anyway. And so that whatever gift that comes out of a sense of joy, out of a sense of deep desire to just give at this moment for this thing. And if you're not in that place, and maybe you shouldn't be, I don't know. I don't want the money. We're doing some wonderful things here. I think we're living into the promise of a new future, but I can't hold on to that future, and I know neither can you. The key to successful church work remains low expectation. But you know, that does apply, I think, to our whole life, doesn't it? It's almost like the key to that successful life is low expectations, not setting ourselves up for huge disappointments, but rather opening our hearts and working. Because when we do it, we find that the joy comes to us because it is a gift from God. And so I invite you to let go, really. To live into whatever it is that is going to spark your life and make it whole. Amen.